Will our callers please take their places in 4 directions? Out of the stars, in their flight, out of the dust of eternity we have come, stardust and sunlight mingling through time and space. Out of the stars and dust of earth we have come.
Out of the east, out of the air we have come, the great winds that soar, the birds that lift up our hearts with their songs, the insects that flit from bud to flower, a caress that brings the fruit and the seed. We give thanks. Out of the east we have come, out of the air. May learn from the air be as clear and open as the air, to soar across barriers and sweep away obstacles.
Out of the south we have come, out of the fire, the sun's fire, the heat and light that is the source of all life, the wildfire that cleanses the land. In its power to destroy lies the power to renew. Hearth fire warming us in the cold. Heart fire, the passion and the heat of love, of compassion, of hope. Out of the south we have come, out of the fire. May we learn from the fire to feed the flames of love and hope, to transform anger into action.
Out of the west we have come, the small streams and creeks, mighty rivers, the ocean stirred by sunlight and the moon's gravity into the great currents and tides. We give thanks for the sparkle of the sunlight on a blue lake, the shimmer of moonlight on the ocean's waves. Healing water, cleansing water, out of the west we have come, out of the water. May we be like water, learning to ebb and flow and heal and cleanse.
Out of the north, out of the earth we have come, dust of the stars that congealed into the body of the planet, our home. Hot core spewing lava that cooled into mountains, boulders and rocks and pebbles, dirt and sand and silt. For all that grows, runs, leaps and flies, we give thanks. Out of the north we have come, out of the earth. May we remember we are but one of earth's children. May we learn from earth our kinship with all beings.
Blessed by air, fire, water, and earth we gather at the center of our lives. At the forming edge of our days, here may hope and wisdom be found. We gather in this place of warmth and light to remember those who we are and from whence we have come.
We listen. We listen to the voices of our ancestors that we might better choose how to live our days. We remember the promises passed down through the generations and for the generations to come that are now ours to keep. In this we come. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de esta congregación, el servicio es el principal. Esta es nuestra gran promesa. Vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad a través del amor y ayudarnos mutuamente. We say this every Sunday here at River of Grass. This covenant, written near the turn of the last century by the Unitarian minister James Villa Blake, who wrote it for the congregation he was serving in Evanston, Illinois in the 1890s. This is our great promise, we say together, this vow that we make for ourselves and with one another, that we would speak into being by the power of our joined voices and make real with our very lives. This is our great promise. we say together, this is our great promise. Esta es nuestra gran promesa. So what are covenants? What are they really, and why do we have them? And I say them because this beloved community has several. Did you know that? We have this one that we say every Sunday. We also have our covenant of right relationship. These weave together the whole life of the congregation. Then within the congregation, groups that work together, teams that work together, partnerships that work together, establish their own covenants of how they will attend to the work at hand in love and in service, abiding by this covenant we share every Sunday. Your board has its own covenant. All of your leadership have their own covenants. All of your staff have their own covenants about how we will be together. So covenant is indeed a promise. But it's a particular kind of promise. It's a vow. It's a deep, deep agreement. It's not a contract. A contract commands adherence, where a covenant invites belonging. A contract confirms transactions, where a covenant affirms relations. Some may fear that a covenant enforces some kind of conformity, when in truth a covenant is, in the words of the Unitarian Universalist minister and poet, the Reverend Victoria Safford, a declaration of interdependence. A declaration of interdependence. That sounds familiar. For I was standing on the highest mountain, said the holy man, Black Elk, seeing in the sacred manner the shape of all things as they must live together, like one being. And I saw that the sacred hoop of my people was one of many hoops that make one circle, wide as daylight and as starlight. And it is in this great hoop of interdependence that we make our promise. It is there that we listen also for the promises of our ancestors. The vow to measure all of our actions and all of our decisions by how it will impact to the seventh generation. Not what we can grab right now for money or for power, not the resources we can take right now, not Nestle deciding that they can just come take our water out from underneath us in Florida. It's not about what we can gain right now. It's about what we do right now, impacting those to come. It's also about how we fulfill the promises that were made to us. Promises that are reciprocal, even if we may not know it. Those who would be leaders of the Iroquois nation swear an oath to look and listen for the welfare of the whole people, and have always in view not only the present but coming generations. Oren Lyons, chief of the Onondaga Nation, says one of the first mandates given to us as chiefs is to make every decision relate to the welfare and well-being of the seventh generation to come. Thus do all the elders of the indigenous nations of the earth teach. Well, wait a second. There's a way to think about it that maybe you haven't thought about it before. How these 7 generations are counted. What that might look like for us. This consideration says the 7 generations are not standing here looking forward. 7 generations. One way to consider it, one of the teachings is the 7 generations is 3 behind and 3 before and hours between. That the promises that we live touch and are touched by our ancestors, even as they touch and will be touched by the generations to come. So it is that we not only fulfill the promises of our ancestors, we pay it forward to those to come later. And so it is we find ourselves on this Ancestor Sunday considering the promises that we are making with the future by the decisions and actions we take today, and considering the promises we inherit from our ancestors and how we fulfill them in our lives today. So, let's do the math. If we use an average of 25 years per generation, give or take, used to be 20, we're living longer. With our own generation in the balance, then the span of generations we are bound with stretch back 3 generations or 75 years before our birth. Then there's the 25 years. Yes, we'll live longer, but counting generations, these are the productive years. Making new offspring. I didn't make mine in my 30s, but that's beside the point. And then 75 years beyond our 25th birthday. This is the span of the generations. Now that puts the reach of my own life, everybody's math's going to be a little different, that puts the reach of my own life from roughly 1881 to 2056. That is roughly the span of the generations to which my life is responsible. So it turns out that when I do the math that way and I reach back into the history based on my own calendar, it's the same time frame as the writing of this covenant that we say. The Reverend Blake wrote it around 1890. Also happens to be the same time frame when Black Elk joined the resistance of white settlement on his native lands and saw his people massacred at Wounded Knee, and let his broken heart transform him into a healer and a holy man. So I did a little more looking. It also turns out that 75 years before my birth was also the time of the births of my great-grandparents, born in both the Choctaw and Cherokee nations. And believe it or not, I never had done this math until I sat down to write this sermon. So I'm sitting there in front of my laptop going, wow. So then, what promises must I keep? I can only answer for me. I'm already keeping one every Sunday with the covenant we say together here that was written in that time. You were already saying it before I got here, so I thank you for helping me live into my promises in a way I didn't expect. But what are the ones I must keep with my indigenous ancestors? Those of my blood. Those of my bond with all Native peoples. Perhaps I can know if, like Black Elk, I can learn to see in the sacred manner. Perhaps I can know if I learn to listen in the bones of my being for the voices of my ancestors sing. Listen. Perhaps I can know when I understand again the oneness of the universe and that its center is everywhere. That its center is in me, that it's in you, and that it's in all of the children to come after me when I am once more returned to dust. Perhaps when I become brave enough to ask every day, what promises are mine to keep?
The ritual that we're going to be embarking upon is a ritual of whisper. And this ritual of whisper is something that we're going to be one with the universe in a moment. And the only thing that it required for the participation is a willingness to open our hearts a willingness to open up and connect with our inner self and the ancestors, and a little bit of time traveling. So as you sit in your seat at this very moment, you are in the present moment. And yet, you're also the past. You carry the ancestors within you. In your very blood and your cell DNA, you carry your ancestors with you. Every moment of the day, they are walking with you. And you also are the future, because every action birthed in today, every child that is brought into our lineage, every good action that is created in the world is something that you're birthing for the future. And so, how clever that at this very moment, we're in all three spaces of time. So, right now I'm going to ask you all to get comfortable in your seat and pull up your spine to make sure that the energy is flowing through you. And the next thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to model for you that we're going to take a breath. We're going to take 3 cleansing breaths. And I'm going to model it for you so that way when we do it together, it will come as second nature. So you're going to take an inhale in. And then you're going to exhale it with sound, right? Because sound is the primordial of, in the Vedic tradition, Om, and the universe was created. So, right now, after we take our 3 cleansing breaths, you're going to close your eyes, and we're going to go into that space-time, which knows no time, of Mircea Eliade, who is a religious historian, wrote about it. Illo tempore, time outside of time. That's what sacred time is. There is no time. So I invite you to close your eyes and let's take an inhale in. And now I'm guiding you as you're in this space where time sits outside of it. And you're in complete darkness, but yet you're not alone. You're connected with all the other stars that are shining bright in this room. And right now I want you to start whispering the names of your forefathers that you carry around in your DNA cell with you. I want you to start naming them right now. And for the next minute, we're going to call upon them, and they shall be with us in this very room. Rafael, Salome, Javier, Nina, Laxis, and we acknowledge that these ancestors are right now here present in this room. Dearly beloved, we're never by ourselves. We're always carried with our ancestors. We're always surrounded by them. And at this very present moment in time, we connect and honor their memory. And we understand that we are now ancestors sitting in our seats. We have called you in. We have whispered your names. You are here with us, and now we shall be ancestors to those that come before us. Let us always fill our well to know that we're never truly alone. Amen.
As we share the Reverend Roland Gibson's litany of remembrance, after my words, please say, we remember them. In the rising of the sun and in its going down. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds and the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky and the warmth of summer, we remember them. in the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn. We remember them.
In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we rejoice and yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are part of us, as we remember them.
Our Unitarian Universalist faith requires no creed. Rather, we are bound to one another in covenant of love and service, that we may dwell together in peace, that we may seek the truth in love, that we may help one another, whatever may come. This is our great promise. Esta es nuestra gran promesa. It is given from the ancestors, and by us to the ancestors, and for the generations yet unborn. It is heard in the whispers of those who yet yearn to guide us from within. Those that Besa helped us bring back to ourselves in this moment of time, knowing we never move through this journey alone. What are your promises to me? As Unitarian Universalists, we promise to build a new way.